Good morning, all, or happy lunchtime for my friends in Southbound and the rest of you living in the future. And welcome to Kalbardr's Corner for this episode of Coffee with Cal. I am Lord Kalbardr Guyler, Commander of the Meridian Cross, Commander of the Argent Comet, Commander of the Argent Lamp, Commander of the Falcon's Faith, and Reaper. Coming to you live, as always, from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridiates. Now, today I am joined for this first episode of 2021 by one of my Westie Besties, the Honorable Lady Katrina Yarbrough, patent pending. Welcome, your ladyship.
Hello. Thanks for having me on. That patent pending thing still makes me giggle, no matter what.
It's my favorite
part. I definitely like using a limbo pel as well.
Right.
So that's always my favorite.
Limbo pel doesn't work as well in an introduction. The patent pending just works better for an introduction. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your background, where you come from, who you are, and what makes you amazing?
Oh my goodness. All right, so I am from the West. The patent pending or limbo pel joke is that I was offered by their gracious majesties of the West for membership into the Order of the Pelican at 12th night last year, just before everything locked down. So there's actually about 5 of us here in the West that are waiting to be elevated to various peerages. So we'll get there when we get there. My background is I've been in the SCA for somewhere on the order of 23-4-ish years. Most of my time has been spent in some form of service with a major focus on event stewarding. So that's where I come from this, but I've held multiple offices. I've been a seneschal at both principality and a provincial level. I've been list mistress. I'm currently the site coordinator for the West Kingdom, and did help to revamp the Event Steward Handbook, which for you Westie folks is on our website on the Seneschal's page, just in case you were wondering.
Go check that out.
Plug it. Go check it out. Actually, I do that because a lot of folks tell me that they don't even know it's there. So every once in a while, I do like to remind folks that it's there. Once things actually settle down some more and we find out what reality is going to be, I will actually be revamping it to match whatever kind of new eventing order we have, but I'm not touching it until things settle down.
Post-COVID guidelines are going to be a fun little addition to most handbooks for a bit.
Definitely.
Post-COVID sounds good. I like the words post-COVID. Let's get there.
Yes, I like post-COVID.
Yeah, let's get there. All right.
For real. But that's kind of where I come from. Is event stewarding is my jam. So, and that means I work with a lot of volunteers and a lot of officers, and I've seen a lot of stuff. And so this was just kind of important to me to come on and talk about some stuff today. So that's
All right. So before we get into the meat of the topic, and you actually just gave me an idea for another topic too. We'll hit on in a second, because information not being able to be found is a thing in the SCA too. So we might get into that. All right. So today's show is coffee themed. So we have to talk about our coffee first. So my coffee of choice today is the Black and Tan by 8 O'Clock Coffee in my fabulous new meh mug, because that's my attitude. Meh. I like it. What about you, Katrina? What are you drinking?
For me, we tend to go with the classics here. I'm drinking good old Folgers Black Silk coffee. It was introduced to me at a Dougal many years ago, and I still love it. But my little mug here today, if I get this right, because my camera's weird and I go sideways all the time. But it's my little owl, and inside there's a little baby owl inside the mug, full of coffee. Can't show you. But this mug was actually given to me by a volunteer. Joan was an event steward for us here in the West Kingdom last year. What? Janet, sorry, thank you. Husband corrects me. Janet, sorry, Janet. Anyway, she was an amazing event steward for a very difficult event for us last season due to some site things. And so I just wanted to kind of say, hey, I got your mug and I use it. So
That's a pretty sweet mug. I know there's a lot of we have, so in Meridian, one of our arts and sciences awards is the Order of the Velvet Owl. So owls is the thing we see a lot of in our kingdom. Owls and bears, which I've always said. So because we have the Legion of the Bear, which is our war fighting award, and we have the Order of the Velvet Owl, which is our arts and sciences award for like grant level awards. I want to be both, so I can have an owl bear patch. I want to be an owl bear. That sounds like the best thing ever.
Right.
All right. Anyway.
So now, would you go like full on Avatar, an actual owl bear, or do you want an owl bear?
No, it'd be an owl bear. It'd be a full on owl bear with owl. Because hold on, we're gonna get off topic for just a second here. All right.
We are. Yes.
So the bear patch is a bear in an embattled border. The owl patch is actually a velvet bag with an owl face on it. So I'm thinking if we take the bear, put the owl face on it, put it in the embattled border, and flap it on the pouch. It's an owl bear pouch, and I'll love it. Like that's
there you go.
Life now. That's all I want. Everybody was like, I want to be a peer. I want to be an owl bear. It's my job. All right. Anyways, sorry.
Owl bear is a lofty goal.
Right. I think everybody's had their aspirations in life, and that's mine. All right. So we kind of talked around the topic a couple times, but let's get into it. So the topic for today is officers and volunteership, or volunteers and officership, depending which thing with the ship on. And so you pitched this to me as a we obviously the SCA is a volunteer organization, but we're also a business, right? So we have to have officers that have jobs that are documented jobs, right? So everybody likes to say that, oh, it's a volunteer organization. Do what you want to, and like do as much as you want or as little as you want, and that's great to a point. At some point, we've got business to do and things that we have to get done to maintain the functions. We have officer roles that have jobs that have very clearly defined roles, some of which suck. Sorry. There's just little stupid fly in here. Won't go away. It's gonna be that kind of day, guys. And then we also have a whole lot of people who volunteer, and I think there's always a weird disconnect of how to deal with those, because so many people in the SCA aren't managers and don't know how to do that. So they know how to do their thing, but they don't know how to manage the volunteers. So yeah, what from your side, what was your drive for this subject? What was your reason to pick this?
So this kind of came out of many conversations, but of a conversation that we were having when we talked about the event you guys are planning in Meridies for service.
Right.
And what I kind of hit on, what kind of is important to me is, so I'm trying to choose my words carefully because I don't want this to become a everyone treats volunteers bad kind of place, because that's not true. It does happen, and we definitely can do better at it, but it's not, I don't want this to be a, grump session so much. But what's important to me is to find that, so you have the place where you have your volunteers who are doing things, right? So maybe they're running gate, maybe they're marshalling, maybe they're doing heraldry, those kinds of things. That it's the non-officers that I think that whole it's a volunteer organization thing applies. In that those folks need to do do as much as they're able, and be appreciated for it, and recognized for it. I think then you have your other side of this coin, which are the officers. And while they are still definitely volunteers, because I don't know about you, but I ain't getting paid. But definitely still volunteers. There's a bit more of a responsibility that comes with that, where you've accepted a job and you need to do this job, and if you find that you get into a place where you can't do that job anymore, then the honorable thing and the correct thing and the right thing, of course, is to say, hey, I can't hang, let me help find a replacement.
Right.
Because you don't want to leave people.
I think there's things you can do before that too. I think there's some steps to do before you get to that point too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that we can kind of get into. So, but I think I'm just kind of defining our lines here. And so I think you did hit something on the head, is that a lot of the times officers end up with volunteers that they work with, especially like seneschals and those kinds of things. And you may not necessarily have, those types of skills to understand how to, for lack of a better word, manage people, or how to work with folks well.
Well, and even if you have that skill, even if you're a manager mundanely, it was actually brought up in the comments. There's a very different way to manage employees. I disagree with this. It shouldn't be different, but it's how I work. So when I go to work, I'm there fully and completely doing my job, the whole thing. So when I go to the SCA, I'm there fully and completely doing my job, doing the whole thing, right? My approach is the same, but that's very singular to me. Not everybody's like that, right? Most people, when they go to work, their head down, they're getting their job done, they're getting paid, they're going home. When they go to the SCA, they're up and they're lively and they're enjoying it, and it's their hobby or vacation. They're not always there to work. Yes, people are willing to do stuff to help, but there's very different mentality. Whereas I'm like the same mentality, so I disagree a bit on that. But there is a very different way to manage volunteers versus employees, and you have to find that balance, because there is, again, you gotta get the job done. So at some point you gotta say, you do this and get it done, but you can't you do this because they just want to go hang out and drink coffee. Like there's something there, right? Yeah,
no, for sure. I think it's more of just a communication style more than anything else. Whereas, you know, as a manager in a office, you have some very real authority, you know, to make sure things happen. Whereas in the SCA, it's not so much. I mean, you're there, you're in charge, but you're not. There's no, you know, punitive damages if somebody doesn't do something. You know what I mean? So it's and there shouldn't be, because they are volunteering, they are giving up their time freely, and they are cutting into their, you know, hanging out time to do something for you. So I think it's important to keep that in the forefront of your mind when you're talking to your volunteers on what you need from them. I think if you do that, then usually you're going to get what you need, and everyone's going to be good and happy, and we'll all work together well.
All right, so let's dig this apart for a second. I think there's two halves we can look at. Because there's the idea of being an officer and doing a job and doing that well, and then people that work with you for that job. So let's use XChecker or because I think there's also two kinds of officers too. There's the Seneschal XChecker, like MOC or Minister of Children's. They're the legally jobs. Right, the jobs that have some sort of legal requirement,
constable as well,
and like, you know, so we don't have a constable, so that's a different. Well, we have one for like events, but we don't have one as a role, so that's sort of a weird. It just falls from Seneschal here, but that's three that have like legal requirements and sort of like legal standing. But like herald, whereas I'm a herald and I love heraldry and like that's important to me. If we didn't have a herald tomorrow, the business would still function. Right, we don't need it. Like, there's some differences there, right? So you can do that job without having that requirement. Like, there's some things. Okay, so we have the legal job, we have the not legal officer jobs. Cool. Then there's also the idea of volunteers on a temporary basis, right? So these jobs need people in them and need people working under them to make them effective and make them function. But then, like, you have for events, which is usually we look at things, you know, in events being whether it's a demo or a Australia war, like, you know, search for a Penzic or whatever, it's still volunteers.
Right.
That's still a temporary basis, whether it's somebody teaching a class or running troll or running, you know, or marshaling, whatever. They're just doing it for that day or for that 5 minutes, right? Those are also two different approaches on how you handle those volunteers, as far as the long-term thing or a short-term thing. So let's separate those out for a second. Let's look at the short-term ones first.
Okay.
What can we do? So how do we need to deal with those volunteers? How do we deal with volunteers on a short-term basis to get a job done? Like I said, whether it's going to be just washing dishes or doing a job for some period of time at an event. What's our things we need to look at with that?
So are we talking how to get volunteers to volunteer, or how to treat the volunteers that are there?
Yes.
Or do we care? Yes. Okay. So I think I'm going to
from officer stuff.
Yeah, I think really I'm going to approach this from how to, because it just kind of sticks with what I wanted to talk about is how do we talk to, treat, etc. the volunteers that are there. Sure. Because honestly, if we improve that, more people are going to want to volunteer. That just kind of follows. I think one of the biggest things that you can do for volunteers is, one, say thank you.
Right.
Always, before the job even starts, thank them for volunteering. Thank them for just showing up and being willing to be there, to do whatever it is. And then thank them at the end. You'll notice a theme. Thank you is huge. It is really huge. People, I think, dismiss it a lot and think it's disingenuous, but really an honest, heartfelt thank you is more than honestly any swag you could give them. Now, I personally like to give out swag.
Right. Swag in our desk is important, so
yes.
Do that too.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying don't do it, but we're not always able to do that. And so I don't want anyone to feel like that I can't, do anything with volunteers because I have to have something to give them. No. Right. But I mean, honestly, that is probably the number one thing in my book is thank you. Right. The other part of that is, and how, say let's find an example. Excuse me. Let's find an example of, let's talk about washing dishes. Mm-hmm. And running in the kitchen, because that tends to need to be a little more fast paced, right, than say marshalling. I mean, because that's you set it up and it goes. Right. So.
Or like site heralding. It's not, again, it's not
right. It's
a stressful job, right? Yeah.
Right. So I think it's a difference in how you speak to your volunteers when things are stressful. Is actually the thing that I'm getting to here, is when things aren't going right, how are you treating the people that are volunteering for you? And I think that is when you need to be honestly even more kind, and more thoughtful in your words and in your actions, and to take a breath.
That's just a true statement across the board. Let's just take that statement and just set it aside, because that's an accurate thing. Mm-hmm. I know that's one of the things Helga talks about when she's looking for like her squires and her students is, she takes them on a 24-hour road trip and then takes them to dinner. Okay, how do you treat your server? Yeah. I think that's a great thing. Is how do you deal in that stress situations? How do you deal with
people? Right. So it's things like, please, thank you, right, can you, will you, not ordering,
right,
asking.
Which, so I have to admit this. So I have an issue with that. So I know we're I agree with you. I have a problem doing that. So this is anybody who's out there who's ever worked in kitchens or worked in professional industries where you just got to get shit done. Like, I mean, so I have a culinary background. I grew up in the kitchens. I grew up working, on the lines. You don't say please or thank you, because if you take that extra 2 seconds to say please or thank you, somebody's going to get burned or cut.
Right.
Thing. So a lot of those pleasantries go out the window. So it's difficult for people when you're used to working in those quick-paced environments that are professional, to then go to a volunteer group and you get in that same mentality because you're back in a kitchen, right? So you're in that role. Those pleasantries go out the window, and it freaks people out. And I didn't understand that at first. Like, it took me a while to figure out what I was doing. Like, why am I the asshole here? Like, I'm just getting the job done here. But that's one. It's people aren't used to that environment, and they're See, we don't expect to thank you, but subconsciously you do.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain is trained these as the thank yous and the yes ma'ams and no ma'ams, and I'm speaking a bit Southern here, but like if your brain is trained to hear one thing and you don't hear it, it upsets you. You don't know why it upsets you. You may not be able to point it out and go, oh, he didn't say please.
Mm-hmm.
But your brain knows. And that's a thing that gets people then off, and it upsets them, and then now they're angry and don't know why.
Right. No, absolutely true. I saw a comment from David down there. It's also making sure your dishwashers eat, drink, and have a break. I think that's true with any of your volunteers. Is especially if they're doing something like all day,
Right.
and there's not a lot of people to rotate through. Absolutely making sure they're sitting down and taking a break, and also, just as an aside, making sure you're taking a break and drinking water and eating your own self. I'm really bad at that, which is why I have people around me that sit on me and make me do things that make me do the things that I'm supposed to do for my own self.
Right.
So no, I absolutely agree that can run in and make it hard at times. But I think it's just changing your verbiage a little bit. Hey, can you run those cups out? Thanks. Took me just as long to say, run those cups out. Two different things.
Oh, yeah.
And it goes a long way. And just the tone or timbre of your voice is honestly even more ooh.
What's that say?
Sorry, Shelby says a great question.
Right. Oh no, wrong one. Okay. So she said, I have fear of phobia maybe about volunteering on the day of an event, doing a job wrong because of ignorance and inexperience, plus getting yelled at, which has happened to people close to me. And yes, I'm probably not alone. What are some solutions? Just do it anyway. And that's like, sure, just grab the thing you're scared of. It's fine. It's not going to hurt you, right? I know I'm dick for saying that, but that's the short version. So find somebody you can work with. I think that's so. And this goes back to the. All right, so we're being nice to our volunteers. We're talking about talking to them nicely and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So okay, now let's look at the person doing that, right? So the person that doing that's either your autocrat or some smaller events are only going to have an autocrat running volunteers. So they're running all the things with volunteer people, right? Some larger events like your wars or some of your bigger like gala things like that have section chiefs, right? Where each sort of thing has an autocrat or has a steward running it.
Yeah, it's usually an officer. At least for the West Kingdom, it's usually the officer.
Right. So so more official stuff like crown tournaments is that the officer of that kingdom is running that like the list that day or the heralding that day.
Yeah, there's a list. Mistress will run their volunteers. The marshal will run their marshals. The herald will run their heralds. And that's kind of actually what makes event stewarding great is once you get everything set up, the officers run their things. It's a cool gig.
Right.
But anyway, so let's get back to
So I think the thing you can do as a volunteer coming into that is find someone in that group that you can work with. That's a person. So don't worry about the task itself. I mean, okay, if you only know how to do a list mistering and that's all you know how to do, you literally don't know how to wash dishes, then don't go to offer to wash dishes. Like that's a thing, right? If you never washed dishes before, don't go to offer to wash dishes. But if you know how to do a thing, go offer to do that thing because you know how to do that thing. If not, if you're strictly new and don't know anything, find somebody you like or somebody you can work with as a person and say, hey, I want to help you. How can I help you? What can I do for you? Because that person may then give you a job, but they may also just say, here, help me, make sure I'm eating.
Right.
That's a good volunteer role. Is helping the volunteer manager manage volunteers is also a thing you can do. Right. Yeah. So that's my answer. You just find somebody you can work with.
Yeah, I do think that's really good. I want to put it in a little more of a context, and that because we do a lot, especially. So I always go back to thinking of like crown tournaments, right? Because that's for us. That's kind of the biggest volunteer heavy event that we run. And so I'm looking at like volunteering to be a herald. The heralds say all the time, come over, we'll train you, right? They'll do voice herald training, and those kinds of things. So if you wanted to do that and you hadn't done that before, that is actually one that you can go over and just learn in the day. But
Correct.
again, it is, I do agree. I think it is finding someone that if not that is already volunteering, finding someone that you know that to go with you to volunteer.
Right.
And then just to address kind of the second part of worry about being being yelled at or admonished for doing something wrong. There's always going to be those people.
Right.
Unfortunately. And while we definitely, as a society as a whole, need to work to make that less, and to have discussions with folks who have done those behaviors, to say, dude, what the heck, stop. I think that it does not happen as often as it can sometimes feel like. You know what I mean? I think the fear of it is definitely more prevalent than the actual action.
Right. So that falls in that same category of, yeah, but it only takes one time for you to punch me for me not want to be punched again, right?
Right. No, absolutely.
You can say thank you 100 times, and I'm gonna be like, oh, cool, you said thanks, great, but you punched me once, I'm gonna remember that.
Right. And I think it kind of goes back to, if you think about it, folks are going to be more likely to tell a story of volunteerism of themselves that didn't go well. Right. They're going to more likely tell that story than times when it did, unless it was super exceptional. So I think we end up hearing a lot of the bad stories a lot.
Right.
And so then, which then perpetuates itself, and then we get on this hamster wheel of, I don't want to volunteer because I'm afraid, and then there's none of that. Even if someone has made improvements, there's none of that trying to get past that. It happens in businesses too. That's, you go and read the reviews. A person is more likely to leave a bad review for a small thing than a good review for a small thing that was good. So, I would say, if you are someone who is concerned about volunteering to the point of volunteer to do something that is a little less visible, a little more behind the scenes. That doesn't put you out in front of people a lot. Things like sitting at gate, always a good one to volunteer. They always need people. So that way the constable, at least for us, is not sitting there alone the whole time.
Okay. Constable? Okay. When you say gate, do you mean the person checking people in, or the person physically working the gate? Okay.
No, the person checking people where you sign in.
Okay. So our XChecker runs that. That's why there's a difference there. That's why. Yeah. Because it's money. So our XChecker is control that. Okay.
Right. So we actually have a process where our XChecker counts the gate with the constable at the end, so that all the money is tabulated correctly. But we do have the office that runs it. It's themselves. But anyway, but that is something that is fairly innocuous and doesn't have a lot of. It's important, but it's not super stressful.
Right.
And that may be a good place to start. Just a couple hours. Hang out at gate, talk, chat, help people sign the forms.
You also get to meet a lot of people too.
Yeah, and you get to meet everybody and say hi to everybody that comes in. So it's a really good, honestly, I think it's one of the better starting volunteer jobs for just about anybody.
All right, I want to address a couple things out of the comments
Anyway.
because I'm getting kind of roasted for something I said, so I want to go back to that real quick. It's just Fiken. All right, so Fiken says if you've never known, I don't know, if you don't know how to do a thing, then how do you learn to do the thing, right? So that's
going to ask you about that too.
Right, that's not something you asked, but that's what he meant. Okay, what I meant by that, and where I say that is there are ways to learn how to do a thing that are not in the frying pan, right? Don't come up to me during like if I'm the lead herald of Crown Tournament, don't come up to me during Crown Tournament when I'm announcing the finals, asking me to teach you how to do voice heraldry. That's not the time for that, right? Go to the literally 100 other events between those two times and ask me then when it's the mom and pop invitational tournament. Sure, I'll teach you that day, right? There's a time and a place to learn the things, right? So your tournaments, your things like that are not those places. But if you want to learn the thing, yes, come ask, because we will teach you the thing. The reason I said what I said was if you're scared of getting fussed at or doing it wrong, then don't try to do it on the day in the middle of everything.
Well, right? I think though one of I think Genevieve's point is that there is a lot, at least here in the West Kingdom, of call for volunteers on the day. And so I think Genevieve is going, okay, I hear these people need help, but I'm scared to go help. Right. And so the heralds here for us, at least, will actually do voice herald training in the morning before the tournament even gets going. Sure. They have a meeting at 9 or 8 or whatever it is, and they train people, and then they pair the new people with an experienced herald. And so they can switch off, and that herald's standing right there next to you and helping you out and saying, okay, project more, blah, 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 whatever it is, and teaching you the ways of the flags and the things.
You guys have flags? What?
Yeah.
What?
Don't you have flags?
Later.
Anyway.
Apparently.
Right. Inter-kingdom anthropology here, folks. Maggie just made a good point. It's same for the marshals in the West. Is we do the same kind of thing. Is we will train in the morning. But you're exactly right. If an officer is or someone who is in charge of volunteers is in the middle of, running around like a crazy person, probably not the best time to ask. But definitely, especially here in the West Kingdom, when you want to try those new things, go to those meetings, go to that morning meeting. They will train you. They will help you out. Because Herald is another one that is a nice, I'd like that. It's like a little step above because you are on the field and you're kind of in the public eye. So you need to be ready for that if you're going to volunteer for that. I have done it one time and I was shaking the whole time. So, I can get up in court and talk, no problem. Don't ask me to herald.
But there's also some jobs. So like, I'll speak for Meridians. We often have card runners. We have the person running the list and we have the person heralding the list. And there's usually somebody going between them. Yep. We let the kids do that a lot. We have a lot of times we'll have teenagers or the younger kid or the older kids. They'll come out and do that stuff. So if you're somebody who's not as confident, you can do the same work as a child. Kids can figure it out. You can figure it out, right? It's literally running cards back and forth. So yeah, so there's always jobs to do, and things like that. Sure, I can teach you to do that in 10 seconds. Here, take this, put this on top, run it to that guy, and then repeat. Yep. Not hard. Yep. But there's another comment that came on. I got to scroll back. People are talking. I'm like, God, there's so much.
I know there's so much good stuff in the comments. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so this came from Runa, and this I think goes back to the idea. It's important to be honest when you're volunteering. So if you know how to do a thing, say I know how to do a thing. But if somebody says, hey, can you chop this onion, and you've literally never used a knife before, then say no. Yeah. Or say, no, I don't know how to, but can you teach me? Right?
Yep.
Now,
absolutely.
The other half of that, and I can't find the comment now, but sometimes it takes longer to teach someone something than it would be if you just do it myself. So if I'm stressed and trying to get a thing done, I say, hey, Katrina, can you chop this onion? And you're like, I don't know how to chop an onion. I'm just going to chop the onion myself because I'm already at that point. I don't have enough time to teach you how to chop the onion, right? And that may sound dumb, but when you're trying to get a job done at the end of the day, that's the time. Now, Later that evening, when you come back to me and say, "Hey, Cal, can you teach me how to chop an onion?" I'll be like, "Oh, sure, let's go sit down and chop this onion now," right? And again, I'm using chop an onion for literally fill in the blank other job here, right? But in that stress moment, that's not the time to teach. At least not for me. Other people may be good at that, but that ain't the time.
Mm-hmm.
You can find time to do that. So that's one thing that I know, like the West is doing one right now. We're working on one. So we've noticed that there's a lot of things that we've just been taking for granted getting these jobs done, and nobody's really training them.
Mm-hmm.
Work on training things. So speaking as the current Lantern Herald for Meridiers, because that's my job, which is education for heralds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually working on doing that. I'm working on developing some sort of introduction classes on how to do heraldry. Not the all end all be all. Here's all the little details about 5th century German heraldry and this I don't care about that crap. It's how to be herald in the SCA, like how to do listing, how to do the field stuff, how to do site stuff, and the sort of the basics of those jobs, right? Because we don't do enough of that. We talk about a lot of what the job is, but nobody really teaches the jobs. And that's the time to do it, is between the events.
Right.
On that Wednesday night class, that instead of having a German brickwork class, let's have a how to balance your XChecker spreadsheet class, right? And then if you're not interested in it, if you don't really care about that, go to it anyways. Go learn that thing. So then if you ever have to help, you've at least seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I always, tend to tell people, find something you're interested in, because that creates sustainability. But also, it doesn't hurt you to learn a thing. If you're willing and you have the time and the wherewithal to do that. I think this actually is a nice bridge to talking about officers. And because we've kind of dealt with our short-term folks, or our on the day job folks for a bit. And so trying to figure out kind of where I want to start with officers. So with officers, it's with an officership, of course, that becomes more of a responsibility, because as I said in the beginning, it's a job, right? You have committed to doing this job for however long your term is in your kingdom.
Some period of time.
Yeah, it's 2 years, here in the West. Drink. So I think that's important, is to understand, when you're looking at being an officer, is to understand it is a long-term commitment. Right. What I think we need to do more, like I said, I can only speak for the West Kingdom because I haven't really dealt with officers in other kingdoms, and how they're handling things, is I think we do need to do more education around on what does an XChecker do? What does a seneschal do? How does that work? What does that entail? And ways to go about that. I think that it should be multifaceted, because people learn in different ways. Right. So like the Event Steward Handbook, let's go there. It's a document. It's there. You can use it. But for some folks, that's not enough, right? That gives them a guideline, gives them a rough idea of what they need to do. But maybe that needs to be more. Now, granted, I'm going back to those are kind of short-term jobs, but
no, Event Steward though, it's not a 2-year job, but that's still at least a 6-month job.
Can be, yeah.
We figure even let's say 3 or 4 months. It's an oh god explosion job.
Right.
Whereas like your XChecker job, your minister list job, you're sort of doing that all year, and you sort of build a system and you go, right? Whereas autocrating or Event Steward, that's a lot of panic to an explosion day. So that's a different approach as well, but it's the same idea. You're still committed to do a thing.
So I agree. Someone actually brought up learning deputies, and there's another way that you can disseminate this information. It's really what it's about, right? Is getting the information to the people that need it / want it in a way that they can absorb it and is meaningful. So I'm jamming on the service symposiums that are going to be happening. That I think that's fantastic. They're wonderful, wonderful idea. You know, we have all this. We have the collegiums for the arts, so symposiums for services is just
right.
Makes sense. But I think the other thing that we can do is to provide some sort of audio video content, you know, for folks to view. You know,
I know a guy. I know a guy that could do that. Yeah.
But literally, and not and I'm not saying, you know, we make, you know, 2-hour-long training videos. I'm talking about you know, half an hour of this is what I do in my job.
Right.
You know, or this is what, you know, if it's somebody who maybe not is holding the office currently, but has held the office, you know, this is what I do in my job. Now, I do think sometimes we get a little bit hung up on, well, that's not how I do it, places. And so I think it needs to be somewhat of a consensus or this is the content we're going to put on the Kingdom site.
Right.
And these are the guidelines, you know, because yes, there is absolutely room for autonomy and for how you work and those kinds of things in these jobs. So I think if we start developing those kinds of things, we can start to make it a bit more of a, here's our guidelines, not this is the one true way.
Right.
You know?
So I have opinions on that, actually, because I'm very much a write a manual, follow manual kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
So mundanely, I'm a project manager and I'm a scrum master, and like I'm all about you write your processes down, you follow the processes, and then every so often, 1 week, 2 weeks, 17 weeks, whatever your time frame is, you review the processes and adjust as needed. You don't just change when a new person comes in just because that person doesn't like.
Oh no.
Right.
No, I'm not. It's because there's processes, and then there's just kind of the way to go about getting the thing in the process that needs to be done. You know what I mean? That's where I'm talking about. Having that autonomy to do
both of those things happen. I've seen both those things happen where people come in and go, well, I don't like using Google Docs, so we're just going to throw away these last 5 years worth of work and move back over to using Word.
See, now that's
not happen.
No, that for me, that is a no. Unless there is a full-on consensus of this is not working for anybody. Oh my God, and we can't handle this anymore. Then you switch this. That's switching the process. I'm talking about, like, I don't know. I always like using examples because it makes it a little easier.
Analogies.
Yeah. I don't like the order of that you set things up as an event steward, you know, as far as at the event itself, right? Yeah. Like someone wants to do the list field first, or someone else wants to set road first, or wants to mark this first. You know, here's the things that need to get done on this day in this time frame. The order that you do them in and kind of how you do it is a little bit more of a wiggle.
Right.
You know, within the guidelines. And so I basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is I want people to feel when they are an officer that they do have some sort of input, and they're not just an automaton sitting in a position doing the rote work, you know. It does. Now, granted, there's some things like XChecker where that's got to be the way, right? You know, because it's financials and legal forms and you have to use the spreadsheet, blah, 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 blah. But in other places, there's a little more wiggle room that we can do that with.
I will say this, though. One of the things and this is something that's gotten me in trouble, so your mileage may vary. Don't be afraid to ask why. So if you're handed a process and even as XChecker or Seneschal or one of the legally jobs that says, hey, we do it this way and that's just how we do it, Ask why. Now, the answer may be, I don't know. That's the way we've done it for 35 years. And that's maybe the answer you get. But at least asking the why lets you understand why you're doing everything a certain way, because there may be a reason why we set the list field up first and then set up the feast hall. That reason may be because that's how the trailer's loaded, right? And you've never seen the trailer loaded or unloaded, so you don't know that. But that there may be a reason. Or there may be a reason because Bill did it that way once 10 years ago, and that's just how we do it. And it's stupid because Bill was an asshole and shouldn't have done it that way. But Bill wanted to do it his way, and we should do it the other way, but we've always done it that way. So ask the question, be prepared for the answer, but ask the questions.
No, absolutely. And I think that's something sorry, thought derailed. I'm like, I have so many. Right, yeah, because this is the way we've always done it. Is BS. Sorry, it is.
Or why does this principality exist? We don't know. It just does.
It just does. Oh my gosh, I totally lost my train of thought of asking why, and then it's gone. Anyway, all right, moving on. So
let's go back to the idea of learning deputies, because I think this is a really interesting point.
That's what it was.
So one of the things, and like, so let me speak from Meridia's, and I'll hear interested to hear your thing. One of the things I've noticed is we have officers, and then they have a deputy, and that deputy is always the replacement. It's so like we hold the office for 1 year with the previous officer as our deputy, sort of training us allegedly.
Right.
That never actually happens, but that's the goal. And then after a year, we pick our new deputy. That's our replacement deputy that we're supposed to train for a year and then another year after they take over. That's the thing that's supposed to happen. I've never seen it actually happen that way.
Yeah, I've seen it happen in like XChecker and those kinds of places, but definitely it's something we absolutely need to get better about, which is I think why I'm supportive of having training available in other ways.
Right. So the idea of you can have deputies to do a job, and look, let me again, I'm speaking for Meridia's and my experience. You're allowed to have deputies, deputies with an S. So if you, as the herald of your local shire, want to have a committee of heralds working for you, working under you, training under you, you can do that. It's allowed. Unless your bylaws say otherwise, which if they do, that's silly, but you can do that. So if as the XChecker, you don't have enough time to do all the XChecker stuff, find help, right? Get people to help you do that. Farm out some of the work. Find you a group of volunteers to work under you that you can then train all 5 of them on how to be the XChecker, so that when it comes time for you to pick a replacement deputy, you've got a pool of people that are already trained to do the job. Right. And that goes to the office.
No, I absolutely agree. I think it's something we need to definitely, because it's the same way here in the West. While occasionally, like Maggie said, she was deputy Kingdom ANS and then was never Kingdom ANS. And that is the thing, is that just because you're a deputy does not mean you have to apply for the job.
Right.
Here does not mean that. And I think a lot of people have that misconception. And so I think we need to kind of change that mindset, and that start to really like put out there. And it's also, again, it's disseminating of information. Segue, where that says, hey, I'm looking for deputies to help me currently and to learn the job. I'm not looking for a deputy successor, right? Because then people go, I don't want to do the office, run away. And nobody wants to do that. So I think in how we phrase it and how we promote that and ask is important. And so that we are saying, okay, these are going to be teaching positions if you're interested in learning this job and doing some of the minor things with it. And then you can make a decision on whether, like for Seneschal. Okay, yeah, you might be a deputy kingdom Seneschal, but okay, now that's given me a groundwork. I can go apply to be a local Seneschal before I'm, in the big chair. Kind of a deal. But now I have a grounding and a training in what a Seneschal does. Right. So I'm not sitting there in my local group just kind of floundering along, hopefully, getting it right. Kind of deal. And so I think that's definitely something we should be moving to.
Right. I think I know. So when I first took the job, so I became Lantern Herald after. So I was deputy Lantern Herald or Candle for 4 months, and the previous Lantern Herald went, you know what? I quit. I'm out. And granted, he did it for a good reason. He had like medical issues that he was dealing with his wife, whatever. So he quit for a good reason, right? But I had literally happened to me what everybody complains about, that I was deputy for 3 or 4 months, and I took over the job. Now, I had no problem with that because I was already sort of doing parts of his job anyways because of what I was doing as Candle, so it wasn't a big deal. But then when I started talking about doing some stuff I was working on, I made a joke about, hey, I'll be looking for a deputy soon, and one of the first reactions was, oh God, no, I don't want to take over your job. That's the thing that happens, and I think it's happened so often that the minute you become somebody's replacement deputy, they quit. And yes, it doesn't happen more times than we think. But again, you get punched once, that's all you remember.
Yeah. Genevieve made another great comment, and if you haven't figured it out, I love this woman. She's amazing. But pointed out that deputies are going to be very, very important post-COVID. Because yes, if they feel sick, they should be staying home.
And that's not even, let's take COVID out of that. That should have been the rule in the beginning.
Right.
If you're sick, don't come.
Deputies are for. Right. Honestly, is you should have a deputy for when you are not able to fulfill the duties of your office for
whatever reason, right.
For whatever reason, my car broke down, I can't get to the event. Need a deputy. Right. But again, I do think it's shifting the culture from, if I'm a deputy, I'm supposed to take this job. Right. You're just helping with the job at that time. If when they're up, you decide that it's a cool thing, great, apply. Now that comes back on the officer currently holding the job, though, that has deputies, to not be like, oh, I've got deputies, bye. Right. And so, and that can get very easy.
Right.
When you have, oh, this person's all fired up and doing all the work, great, I can take for
right. No.
No, it's their job.
So now, how do you deal with those deputies now? I'm an officer. I have a couple people that are going to help me do the thing, right? That want to do the job with me and want to learn the job. How can I, as a good officer, delegate stuff to them, right? Because I think that's the hardest thing. One of the things I've seen a lot is you have officers and they have people that want to help, right? People are offering to help people all day long, whether it's and we can actually even step aside from back into your daily event stuff, or even looking at like planning elevations or doing a task thing, right? Delegation is the hardest part. How do I have all this stuff? How do I piece it out? Because so if you're looking at it from a business perspective, well, if I hand Bill part of this report, and Bill's my guy today, Bill's the bad guy today. If I hand Bill part of the report and Bill didn't do the work, well, now the boss can deal with Bill for not doing part of that work. Right? But if I, as Lantern Herald, hand you part of my work and you don't do it, it's just me. I'm now in trouble.
Right. And so I think it's, excuse me, you have to find that balance of delegation and following up with that delegate, and not micromanaging, but establish, okay, I'm giving you this thing, I need it by this, we need to get this done by this date. If you're having trouble, you need to let me know, so I can help or whatever, or we can work together, blah, blah, blah. And it's just keeping that communication going.
Right. That's the key word there, communication.
I want you to be able to do this thing, because I trust you to get this thing done, but I need, let's have a check-in midway through the timeline and see how you're doing and where you are, or whatever, depending on what it is. I mean, if it's something really simple, you got to vary that. But definitely regular check-ins and communications with your deputies is absolutely paramount.
Right.
Especially because sometimes they have lives too, and so sometimes life will get in the way, and then you poke at them and say, "Hey, what's going on?" And it's like, "Oh, right, crap. Okay, no, and they'll go back to doing what they need to do. It's not that they're deliberately sloughing off. It's that things have gotten
Right.
chaotic or whatever.
So you just mentioned some communication. I think that you're right. That communication is key on a lot of these jobs, making that work.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something? I think that's something we can improve on. So,
Mm-hmm.
so we talked earlier about training and teaching how to be an XChecker, how to be a herald, how to be the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that I don't see enough of in the SCA is soft skills. We never teach how to use Google Docs,
Right.
or we never teach how to use email.
Mm-hmm.
Because you and I, we both know how those things work. It's natural. When I start planning, the minute I start planning an event, I make a spreadsheet, I make a Google Docs folder, I make a Facebook group, I make a chat.
Yep.
I have a process because I'm a project manager. It's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
But if I hand it to somebody else to do that, they don't know how to use those things. And or if I bring some Uncle Fergus boomer on, tell me my event, webcam, like.
Right.
I love you, Fergus. If you're watching, you're probably not because it's early in the morning for you, but I love you, Fergus. You have to teach them how to do that thing. You can't just expect that they know how to use Google Docs or they know how to use a website. Right? So maybe that's something we can look at in some of these service symposiums is not only teaching, how to be a list minister, but how to use Google Docs, right? Those other skills.
Yeah, I do think in looking over some of the classes that are happening for the West Service Symposium, at least, I do think there is a bit of that going on in there. I know there's some marketing things that are in there, promotion type stuff,
right.
And a few other related but not strictly SCA skills classes that are in there. So they're doing a good job with that. I'm really kind of excited to see how this rolls out. And I honestly think it's something that we should keep going in perpetuity, for some time, because as we get new people in, it's still going to be relevant. So,
well, in theory, it's all stuff that's available. I mean, if you right now go and Google how to use, blah thing, like insert thing you learn how to use, there's YouTube videos out there, right? But I think one of the things we can do, the SCA, is build them for ourselves. And it's stupid because using Google Docs is using Google Docs, whether it's for a business or for SCA. But if it's somebody from an SCA perspective teaching it, people in the SCA are more likely to look at it. And that's weird, but it's true, right?
It's community, it's comfort. It's it's not some.
Ooh.
They're just more engaged and they get more buy-in, than anything else. I really respect, Mistress Bloody Blah, who's teaching this thing, because I took this class. I'm gonna go listen to them. Your brain just wants to hang with that person more.
Well, and so one thing I'm doing for talking heralding stuff, like there's all the things I'm going to be teaching them about how to be a herald. You could find on 3 other websites, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea of us as Meridians teaching it to the other Meridians, right? Mm-hmm. And because not only then are you getting the how to do the job, you're also sort of getting the FaceTime with the current Meridian people heralds. That I think also helps too, because then you're also building that relationship, even though it's through a YouTube video, right? You're building that relationship. So I think that's important too, to give you those soft skills of, and also people, let me just say this: Zoom is not the answer. Zoom is an answer. Zoom is not always the answer. All right, I'm done now. That was my
Zoom. So I think one last point I want to hit on, because we are at an hour.
You can get coffee. I'm good. Let's go.
I know. I still have coffee too. I'm willing to keep going. I could talk all day.
We're good tips, so we're good. We got a few minutes.
Right. But one topic I do want to touch on, and something that's very important to me, is once you are an officer, or have you been an officer, and you take another office, the way you talk about that office and the way you treat that office when you leave it is exceedingly important.
Right.
When you are in the office and you're talking about the office, and granted, we all have bad days, so yes, we need somebody we can vent to. Dear God, I'm not saying that at all.
Right.
But if you're more of in a public setting, you want to be a little careful,
Right.
and not in the place of venting. Coming from a place of venting, end up bad mouthing the job. It's this fine line, and I don't want to be the thought police, and I don't want to do that. But it's not bad mouthing your job in public,
Right.
because yes, there are days where some of the jobs are not fun at all. But we want to be realistic without being bitchy, I guess. I mean, is for lack of a better word. It just don't bitch about your job in public. Just don't. Find someone that you can vent to, vent away. Do the thing. But we want to be able to, because people are like, wow, if she's like, this upset already, I don't want to, it scares people off.
Right.
The other thing, soapbox right now. The other thing, when you are done with your office and the officer changeover is happening in public at court, it is not cute. It is not funny. It is not any of those things to go running away once you have given the office up. Or skipping out of court, or I'm free, la la la. You might think it's cute. You might think it's funny. The whole Dobby is a free elf thing. No. This gives a really bad impression to potential officers. Like, well, if they're running away, and every officer I see that gets changed over is just running away before they get tagged again, or whatever it is.
Right.
They're not going to want to volunteer. And then we sit here and wonder why we don't have volunteers.
Right.
And why we can't find people for these offices. And I understand people are coming at it from like I said, they think it's cute and funny, right, and kind of stuff. And it just gives the wrong impression completely. And I would say this for the same thing as royalty, because I've seen royalty do it.
Right.
And when you're talking to the officers and doing the changeover, don't make jokes about being free, or about, are you sure you know how much you're getting into? I know they're trying to make shtick in court.
But there's other ways to do court shtick.
There's other way to do that. Right. And so it is definitely a bit of a soapbox for me. Of it just gives the wrong idea,
right, and
puts a lot of people off.
No, that's I hadn't thought about that. That's a really great point. And that's something we do. I now you said that, I was like, oh God, I've seen that. Like you start ticking through the ideas, right? I never thought of it before, because I know how hard these jobs are. I know how hard jobs are or not. And a lot of times the hardest part of the job is dealing with the people around the job, not the job itself. The actual jobs are easy. It's dealing with the politics around the job. Let's be honest about that for a second. But yeah, so when people are happy to be rid of the job, it's because of they're tired of dealing with the bullshit around it, not the actual job itself. That's, right. But yeah, but you're right. That happens a lot, and I'm trying to think. Sitting as a new person, if I saw, oh God, that person clearly doesn't want to be, seneschal ever again. I don't ever want to be seneschal. That's dumb, right? Or you hear the one time the MOC's like, oh God, I got, our last MOC got arrested because she accidentally looked at a kid wrong, or like, you're the one bad experience, right? That's all that new person's hearing.
Right. And I think even if it's in general, folks are may not even feel that overt about it, right? But it's that subconscious brain of when it comes, oh, they may go, ah, ha, ha, laughing, of what's going on, right, in the moment. But then it was like you were saying with, people are mad, they don't know why. It's then they think about, they hear like the seneschal is looking for a deputy successor. They're going to shy away from that. That's going to click because that memory is going to be there, and they're going to be like, "Oh no, I don't want to do that job. I can't do that job. It's too big. It's too big." And they may not even know, right, that or realize where that came from. And so it's one of those things. If we can help, dissuade that perception. And again, we don't want to lie to folks, right? We want people to have a realistic expectation, but I don't think running away from your office when you're done with it is giving folks that realistic expectation.
Well, and if that's your opinion, if that's how you feel about it, you shouldn't be in the office in the first place.
Well, and I mean, and you may have gotten to that point, right? You may be at that point, and that's a whole. I mean, you did a whole show with Master Simone about, burnout.
Burnout, right?
Make fly be free comments later on your own time. It's the public. It's not your friend that's right there. It's that person at the back of court that's at their third event that has maybe started thinking about volunteering,
right,
and is now stepping back.
Or those kids that are sitting there watching court.
Or the kids.
Those kids do this, and yeah, that kid's not going to be XChecker for another 15 years, 10 years, whatever. Right. They still remember that. All right, so Katrina asked a question that I want to touch on as part of this too. Talking about healthy turnovers, we mentioned healthy turnover, and so I think there's things I want to address with healthy turnover, because not only don't badmouth your office, I think that's part A of it, but one of the things I always learned in Scouts was we left campsites better than we found them, right? Yep. What is the goal? Leave no trace, leave it better than you found it.
Yep.
Leave no trace, but leave it better than you found it. So if you came into an office and as marshal, right? If you walk in the office and the marshal binder is literally 3 pieces of paper and like one broken pin, that's all you got. Don't leave it that way.
Right.
Go print out some new pages, buy, get some page protectors, buy a binder. Like, all of these groups have money. We have money to spend on stuff, guys. Like, all of you have budgets. Don't ever let your seneschal tell you don't have a budget. There's money to be spent. So if you need a new binder or some new page protectors or some pins, go to your XChecker and be like, hey, I need to spend $20 on office supplies for this office. Yep. They'll let you. It's okay.
Yeah.
I know in Osprey, our officers have like $100 discretionary. They can just spend about $100 on, office.
Yeah, here in the West, we have a $50. If it's under $50, you can just submit for reimbursement. You don't need permission from the financial committee.
I may be quoting it. Don't.
Yeah, I know, but that's our.
Right. There's a number. Yeah.
So yeah, if you need a binder, buy a binder, and then you can submit for reimbursement.
Or they say, hey, they may have some free binders, because how many binders I have on my shelf right now that are empty. Right. I can handle a stack of binders. Good God. I know that because I'm cleaning my library right now, and I just cleaned out like 15 binders last night of just old, it's like old D&D binders and like old character sheets and like just crap I don't need anymore. So yeah, people have extra spots there. You can get them. So that way, when you leave the office, you can hand that new officer, hey, look, here's a backpack with the waivers and your forms and some pins, and here's the marshal's gauge, and here's all the crap I didn't get. Your job is.
Yep. No, absolutely. Definitely that is part of it. I think we could probably do a whole nother show on just on Patrona's I know on Patrona's comment though of healthy officer turnover
Right.
and how we go about training and all of that stuff. I think that's honestly we could do a whole other hour on.
For the Meridier Service Symposium coming to you soon. We might do that. So there's another point I want to make in that though is that it's vital that people not park in a role and that no office can get anyone in for more than 3 years.
Yep.
Yeah. So okay. So the reason people stay in offices is because no one else will do it, or because no one else will do it as good as me, or I don't want X person to do it.
Right.
I'm saying those things because I've heard all three of them from various offices. Everything from the smallest, whatever little peon office to the baron and baroness of a group. I've heard
stop that.
I mean, like, the head, the chief cook and bottle washer, like pick a small office to your local baronage. I've heard those excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Once you step down from an office and you hand that backpack over, it is no longer your problem.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember that. Yep. Be available to help that person if they need it. Mm-hmm. But if they go and you're going this way and you hand that thing off and they take a left turn, okay. It's not your problem anymore. You have to let go of it. Yep. Because she's right. I think having people sitting in offices for 3, 4, 8 years, it just creates staleness both on they're burnt out at that point. There is no way somebody can sit in an office in this organization for more than 3 years and not be burnt out. It's not possible. I don't care how good you are.
Right.
Like I still go to work is because I get paid for it.
Right.
I can't imagine doing it like. Whereas I love heraldry, and I want to teach heraldic classes forever. I don't want to be lantern herald forever.
Right. There's a difference between wanting to like do marshaling, do marshaling at an event,
right,
versus being
marshal, right?
The marshal, the kingdom, principality, whatever marshal.
So don't stick in offices. That's the short version of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the long part of that is staying there because there's no one else to do it, and I think that's the thing that we could actually have a whole nother, I guess, a whole nother hour on.
Yeah. And that's because that's I think right now with the West Symposium, with the Meridian stuff we're doing, we're starting those building blocks to help fix that problem.
Yep.
Because we have to have more people to know how to do the jobs effectively to then move into those jobs. And work conditions better. I think that's the only way we can do that. And yeah, that's not even a coffee talk. That's a whole symposium talk.
Right. That's a whole thing.
And yes, backpack or satchel is brilliant. I think that's the. I don't care what your office is. Make a backpack. Make a backpack, a box, a satchel, a briefcase. Make something. Slap your office patch on it, and put stuff in it. Not only does it help you while you're in the office, have all your crap in one place in your house, but it also, when you hand it off, it gives you something symbolic to hand the next person so they can have somewhere to start from.
Yep. I had a box made when I was list mistress.
Yeah.
Wooden file box. Gorgeous.
Yeah. So, again, we have the money. If you don't have the money, find an artisan. If you want to do something like that, that's a little more advanced than just a Walmart satchel. Like, there are 100 artisans out there. If you say, hey, I'm looking for somebody to make me a file box or make me a cover for a file box, so this is a cool thing for my office, they'll be like, oh my God, here. I'm bored. I want to make a wood thing. That's cool.
You know what? Everyone keeps coming. We keep going because everyone keeps coming up with these amazing comments.
All right. We're addressing this one. All right. So I don't feel like I get the experience as the officer at all because of COVID. Can I re-up for 2 more years to actually do the job? Yes. Okay. So everything we just said, ignore because of COVID. COVID is, we're paused. I mean, although some of us are busier now than we were pre-COVID. Let's just be honest about that.
Yeah.
So if you don't feel like you actually done your job in the 2 years you've been in this role, okay, I'm going to rant for a second and then we're going to end on this. If you haven't been doing your job because of COVID, you're missing out. And I'm saying, there's always the exception of people are busy and lives are happening and people are exploding. Cool, I get it. If your life is exploding, sure, set your SCA job aside and deal with your life. I get it. But if you're sitting around bored, this is the time to be doing paperwork and updating your handbooks and like finding all the things that man, I really wish I could do X, but I never have time for it. Now's the time to do that. You got the next 6 months before we're active again, at least. Update your paperwork. Get your shit together. Build your websites.
Now,
make YouTube videos. This is the time.
Now, granted, if you've kind of done all that already, because you did it in the first bit of your job, yeah. I can absolutely see where you'd be like, well, here we are. So, but I do get where they're coming from. And yeah, I would say to somebody that's has an office that hasn't necessarily needed to be super active, I wouldn't turn down that person for doing another term at all. And then granted, that's going to be up to your kingdom, province, etc., your group, wherever you are. But yeah, I would not, at this point, I would not say that burnout would be so much of a factor in certain offices.
Right. Agreed. All right. All of that being said, let me get into a couple of pieces of business for me before we close out for today. All right. So coming up on the next Coffee with Cal in 2 weeks, I will be joined by the host of Ask the Nice Live, Baron Logan Pathwarden. We're going to be talking about web shows. So Logan's an amazing guy. For everybody who didn't catch the Dice show we did, I love Logan to death. He is just, I literally only met all these people. I've literally never touched Katrina in person. I've never met Logan. I've never met Helga. I've made so many, like, touch me. I've made so many friends out in the West and various other kingdoms during the pandemic that I've just probably would never known. And Logan is another one of them. He has some amazing ideas, and he and I are going to talk about our favorite subject. We both run a web show or multiple web shows. We're going to kind of talk about that and the impact of web shows in the SCA and sort of where we see that going. I think post-COVID, because we're looking towards post-COVID now. Like, that's a thing that's in the future. Like, we see that light. It may be still a bit out, but we can see it coming. Are these shows going to die off once we're back to doing this? So we're going to talk about that. I hope not. That's my goal. The answer is no, but things happen. Next Sunday, I'll be joined by Duke Sean for What Makes a Knight. We're talking about wanting it, the idea of wanting a peerage or wanting a knighthood. And then on the 13th of January, we'll be playing chess on Wednesday Play Wednesdays with Duke Sean and Sir Joffrey. So one of the courtly graces is playing games. So we're talking about having 2 knights playing chess, so I don't have to play chess because I am terrible at it. So that's what we got going on. Katrina, anything you want to plug while we're plugging things?
Goodness.
Not. I know you're busy with Between Two Peers, so you want to plug Between Two Peers stuff? That's just easy.
I'll plug Between Two Peers. So for those, of course, who maybe haven't heard, there's this little show called Between Two Peers that we do every Friday. I moderate the after chat for that, and I'm also a moderator on the Discord server. So check them out. Check out the videos. I know somebody who might be sitting right here on the show with me that might be on at some point. I've
not yet received that invite. It's going to happen at some point, maybe, but I haven't.
But yeah, do check us out and come play on the Discord channel with us. It's a great little community.
Yeah, the Discord has been one of the best things that's happened in this for me personally in COVID is that Between Two Peers Discord. So yeah, this week it's going to be Duke Sten, I think, is the guest. And a guest host of His Majesty Bela from the Outlands will be joining Sir Danger Muppet for that one. So if you haven't watched Outlands Royal Tea every other Saturday, I know the guy that runs the tech for that one. Good guy. Their Majesty do an amazing show with that as well. So there's so much out there. Go like these pages and make sure you like, follow, comment, subscribe, push all the buttons. If there's a button down here somewhere, just push it. I don't care what button it is. Just start pushing buttons and find the right one. We appreciate it, and you guys are amazing. So all that being said, I've been Cal, and she has been Katrina. This has been Kalbardr's Corner, and you guys are amazing. Bye, guys.